going.
Just saying, we're going live.
You strike up the band?
All right, Mike, we're ready.
All right.
Okay.
Slide down.
Usually the camera would be here and get my nice shiny spot in the back of my head, but now they're.
Get a little powder.
on.
So we're live.
We're live. Yeah.
Okay, we're live. Great. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming here. I know people have busy lives and things to do, and some are required to be here, but we do have some volunteers. So I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and giving it to the council to help us move along and make things better here on campus. So thank you for coming. I know I'm calling the meeting to order, but we don't have a quorum. We're one shy, but there's really nothing that requires to be voted on other than adopting the minutes. And so, but we have an agenda and it should be brief, but it's the last meeting till next year. But I know people around the table deal with an academic year rather than calendar year, but it is the last meeting. So we have Brianna Hicks, and we have the pleasure of her being here. She's the head of the Student Council, Student Association, and she's a voting member. And we went around the table and introduced everybody to you, but maybe I'll do it. I'm Eli Bosch. I'm a Kingston lawyer and a very long time supporter of New Paltz. And I know Neil wants to say hello. I'm just going to go around the table.
Yeah, Neil Betez. I live here in town, live in the village, actually. You can almost see my house. And I think I've been on the council for a little over a year now. It's been great fun. Also, I'm an elected official in town, so I play both as best I can.
On hats.
Hi, Brianna. I'm Rennie Scott Childress. I'm the presiding officer of the Faculty Senate. I teach in the history department. I also am an elected official up in Kingston. And so we're well represented here.
Kingston is also in the house. I'm Erica Marks, Vice President for Development and Alumni Relations and Executive Director of the SUNY New Paltz Foundation. And I just celebrated my 9th year here at New Paltz, my New Paltz birthday.
We work person.
Hey,
Barbara Lyman, Interim Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Michelle Halstead, Vice President for Administration and Finance. Shelley Wright, Chief of Staff and Vice President for Communication.
Hannah Pacheco-Dunn, Vice President for Human Resources, Diversity and Inclusion, and the College Chief Diversity.
I'm Judy Bishop. I am not a vice president. I'm the undergraduate admission advisor for international programs currently. I've been working in undergraduate admissions for almost 30 years. And you have me for another 6 weeks and I'm going to be retiring soon. But I will still remain on the College Council and the Alumni Council. So I hope to see lots of you in the next academic year. And maybe beyond if she stays in the area.
I'm Brianna Rich Winters, Director of Community Government Relations. He's the real power.
Do you want to hit the online folks?
oh yes. Hello there, online folks. See if we can hear you. Julie, I know you're the Kingston rep.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sure.
Great. I'm Julie Noble. I am a member of the council and I'm the sustainability coordinator for the city of Kingston.
Hi, Stephanie Blaisdell. I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs and en route to the airport.
Be careful.
Happy trails. And Brianna, I have a little bit of your bio. It says, of course, you're the member of the council and the Student Association president, and tells us a little bit about you. But I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself the way you would like us to know you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Hicks. I am a 4th year in SUNY New Paltz. I'm a senior. I will be graduating in spring 2023. I major in Black Studies with a minor in communication. I hold a lot of positions on the campus, but my biggest position, the most proud position, is that I sit as the Student Association president. And I'm really happy to be here.
Great. And we welcome you. And if you have any questions about anything, just shoot it out. Okay. Thanks.
And good afternoon. I'm Daryl Wheeler, and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of State University of New York, New Paltz.
Great. So we can skip over the agenda item of the minutes. And Dr. Wheeler, I'd like you to give us your report.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to give you updates on some of the things that I've been doing since our last meeting, but this now marks, I think I'm well into my 4th month. I used to count by days. I think I'll have to switch over to months now because I know I'm well over 100, but less than 365. So I'll switch to months. And it still continues to be a pleasure. I continue to do the listening tours across campus. I believe tomorrow will be my 9th faculty-oriented listening tour, and I've probably had about 12 to 15 non-faculty listening tour activities, plus meetings through the foundation with donors and key partners from across various groups. So over the past several months, several hundred contacts, and learning a great deal. And most of the time, I must say, I'm beginning to harmonize themes that will inform my strategic vision for the school. But it was important for me to listen to our community members, students, inclusive and certainly central to this, to better understand who we are as an institution from the words and hearts of those who live it every day. So well into that process, and it continues to be very exciting. I want to comment on several other items that I think have been compelling for us over the past month. We had an open house event and we brought almost 600. I believe the number at registration was 545 prospective undergraduate students to campus. And when you included their family members, there was another 800 individuals that joined them. I don't know who ordered it, but I thank them for ordering the perfect weather we had that day. It was, I mean, the campus showed so well. It was just ideal and families were engaged. And I think if that's any indication, we're garnering a lot of enthusiastic engagement by students and their families. And it was our opportunity to really encourage students to go that next step, completing their applications and actively pursuing engagement with our college. Our SUNY recruitment initiatives, as you well know, our Vice President for Enrollment Management, Mr. Jeff Gant, left us at the end of September. And we've been very fortunate because there were team members already in place, and 2 of them have stepped up. Jessica's, give me her full last name.
Benz Dickinson.
Benz Dickinson and Stella Turk both stepped up, and they're both doing a phenomenal job leading in initiatives that include the kind of open house activities that we get that Jess is overseeing, and then on Stella's side, overseeing the registrar's functions and activities and really working on our student advising and student engagement initiatives that allow us to orient students to the school and bring them on board successfully. By way of information, SUNY Central, SUNY, they're involved in a number of initiatives that are affecting the campuses right now and affecting us in a very positive way. SUNY system has launched a handful of important recruitment and enrollment initiatives. One of them was a free application week. It was actually, I think it was actually more than an actual week, but it was a time frame where the fee for the application was suspended. And the applicants could apply to more than one of the SUNY schools. And what we have seen is an increase in terms of the number of applications. I believe at last count, our application numbers were 176% of where they were to date last year. So that, again, it shows enthusiasm, but enthusiasm has to be met with the next step, which is moving the student from an applicant into a registrant and then bringing the student on as an active student in the fall. So it really is only the first step in the process, but an important indicator that we are definitely on the radar for students and their families. SUNY initiated an in-state tuition match. There are 8 states outside of New York that SUNY will match the flagship their in-state flagship institutions' tuition against ours. So those students, if they choose to come to us, would pay the same as an in-state student here. And in some instances, it is actually less than they would have paid at the in-state flagship. So we hope that for those 8 jurisdictions that we start to see some traction. And I know one of those is my home state of Illinois, and I'm certainly reaching out to folks I know to promote SUNY New Paltz in Illinois, much to the chagrin of some of my Illinois public institution colleagues. I'm happy to report that on the enrollment recruitment side, we successfully received 2 awards through the SUNY Foundation, and one was for $35,780 to help us with one-time initiatives to address retention and persistence, and another was $125,000 to foster more diverse recruitment pipelines. I really want to thank the team that worked on that, and it was one of the it was a very rapid turnaround. So the team did a great job in a short period of time, and the fruit is in the pudding, as they say, or the benefit is there that we were able to submit and successful in receiving that funding. Just a few updates on our enrollment and recruitment. Our first year to second year retention was 84%. Looking at last year's data, the students who would have been freshmen last year to their second year start this time. Last year was 83%, and over the 10-year, our average is 86%. So 84% is more than commendable, but on a 10-year average, it's 86. Clearly, there's room to grow. There's always room to go, but we're sitting somewhere between 14 and 17% on average loss per year. And so you'll see that in our discussions, we'll start to talk more and more about mechanisms of retention, because students leave for many different reasons, and sometimes it's goodness of fit. And we see, I don't think there's any college that doesn't have some loss of students first year to second year, but where we can hold on to students, that will help us with our overall numbers. Our 4-year graduation rates are at 58% in the current year, and that's up from 56% last year. Now, our 6-year graduation rate is 73%, and last year it was 76%, with a 10-year average of 74%. Now, I want to put that into context because these numbers apply to first-time college goers who we persist over 4 or 6 years. And that's the national metric. You look at those 2 points of whether it takes a student 4 years or 6 years. And the 58% is strongly commendable. The 73% is a really strong indicator. I just came from a meeting last night. We're meeting with regional and comprehensive schools from across the country. And again, to give you some context, out of almost 200 schools, when you look at schools that are retaining at 73% and plus, you're probably looking at the top 5% of the schools, because I have colleagues who are retaining at 30%. 30%, and that is their average, and that their acceptance rates are north of 80 or 90%, so they accept almost everyone. Our acceptance rates are probably much closer to high mid 70s to low 80s, somewhere in that range. So we're still considered a selective school, and that may help us in some ways, but it's also something we must pay attention to, because there are some students who may not hit the mark for the selectivity, but hold great promise for being great students. And I think one of the things we'll have to make sure we're examining is that we're not omitting students who might be really strong, and maybe they got a bad start in high school and never fully caught up in their grade point average. And so we have to look at the full student when we're making these decisions. My colleague, Vice President Michelle Halstead, will give a more comprehensive budget review. I just want to comment on a couple of things with regards to the budgeting process. Michelle and I have been talking a great deal over the past several weeks, and one of the things that I'm asking Michelle to lead and to be my thought partner in is creating a more standardized process where we're aligning programmatic review and budget review. So we'll be calling it functionally our annual program planning budget cycle, so that on a regular basis, every year, the departments, the units all know when we are expecting to give quarterly reports, when we need data in, what kinds of data, when is the right time to do mid-year corrections, when do you look at your data, what data are needed for us to be able to analyze where we are both programmatically and budgetarily, because we're going to need that data in these very interesting times in higher education to enable us to make really important and sound projective decisions, because the data that we get this year is only good to the extent that it allows us to make informed decisions for next year. Because when we look at the enrollment and the recruitment, we have to ask ourselves, where might we be and where do we need to be next year in order to be in good stead? What are the programs? What are the demographics of our students? What are the success indicators? Which programs are high draw? Where do we see new innovative opportunities? Barbara Lyman, our interim provost, has been with us for 4 years. And Dr. Lyman, as an interim, has far exceeded any expectation that an interim provost should have. So we are actively in our provost search period. We hope to have a provost in place for the fall of 2023. That would mean a spring 23 identification and selection. While I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Dr. Lyman, I do think that it's time for her family back in Texas to have her full time. So we will hear more about that during the continuation of the semester. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the great work that Dr. Lyman is doing. Our student affairs team, led by Stephanie Blaisdell, they have been doing an outstanding set of work. We were at a meeting earlier with our student leaders. It's right down to fundamental issues like the washers and the dryers have created so much goodwill in the residence halls to make sure that students can get their laundry done, but also how to get the laundry done and not over soaping. So we've had some fun with that. Yeah. Sometimes that's what happens. So I wanted to thank Stephanie and her team for that. And on a slightly different and maybe more somber note, we know that post-COVID and probably before post-COVID, we were seeing increases in behavioral and mental health concerns. This semester, we've seen probably an increase in self-referral for counseling and maybe even an increase in terms of our transportations related to mental and behavioral health. So Stephanie and her team are really monitoring that. I've seen on campus a lot more awareness programs on behavioral and mental health, because it's important for us to make sure that our students know that there's a resource. Being at the state meeting this week out in California and watching the news from Idaho and from Virginia, it was a very somber and chilling kind of experience, because when I was there in July for an earlier meeting, it was the school in Georgia that had a murder on their campus as well. So these are real kinds of experiences that speak to not only our students' mental health, well-being, but our faculty, our staff, and within our community. And I think we have to make sure that as colleagues in a town gown experience, that as colleagues across the campus, that we are leveraging our strengths and resources, not only to our students, but to all who touch us, who might have issues and concerns that are related to stress and to behavioral kinds of considerations. So I just want to emphasize that and know that we try to serve as a resource for our students. And then finally, I'd like to close with, acknowledgement of work that Erica Marks and her team are doing when they led the alumni reunion weekend. I mean, your team did a phenomenal job. I don't even know the count of the folks here, but again, we got blessed with another wonderful weekend weather. It was absolutely phenomenal. The whole array of events, hundreds of alumni back on campus. I know on my way to the first event, I met a woman who had just gotten off the red eye from California, and she hadn't been here probably since she graduated. And at one of the presidential forums, a gentleman and his wife were there. He was the alum. He hadn't been on campus in 41 years, and he came back and he was just enthralled with what we were doing. His one admonishment to the new president was, don't ever forget the centrality of the liberal arts education, that it is about the critical thinking that you get as a result of being a part of this institution. And that was his passion. And so again, it really impressed me that this is someone who made the decision to come back, but his one request was on the core of what we do in the liberal arts. I want to thank Erica and her colleagues again. They led the process of identifying distinguished alumni, and our own council member Ron Law, class of 1974, was honored as a Distinguished Alumni Service Award. And I want to thank all of the team who worked on these awards, and certainly to all of those who received an award. And then, yes, Ron. And we've had a couple of very important and exciting lecture events that were sponsored through Alumni Relations. Liza Donnelly was our fall distinguished speaker, and she spoke, she's written for any number of magazines, the New Yorker, et cetera. And she spoke on the impact of humor in producing an environment where difficult discussions can be held. And then our spring distinguished speaker on March 4th, it is a Saturday, is going to be Chris Hayes. And so we're very excited that Chris Hayes will be joining us. And Donovan and I had the pleasure of hosting Liza for a pre-event celebration at the President's House, and we look forward to doing the same for Mr. Hayes when he comes. We also had a wonderful lecture on the 1st of November with Sarah Carr. She's the James H. Ottaway Senior Visiting Professor of Journalism, and she really did a riveting discussion on post-COVID educational experiences based on her research with community in post-Katrina New Orleans. And she really drilled down into a lot of the issues of structural forces that impede access and prevent us from really living up to the promises of a civil society on key areas. And so I will stop there because I could go on, but those are highlights of things occurring on campus and things that I've been experiencing. And I'm happy to make any further respond to any questions or comments.
Anybody have any comments? Other than wow?
Wow. Regarding the listening tours, are offices reaching out to you and requesting that you?
It's been both, because I've put out there announcements, that if a unit has not or is not being tapped, to please reach out. So some units have. With the faculty, I've opened them. I really just tried to keep them open because trying to get faculty and organize around schedules is almost impossible. So we just open them up. And what I have found is that the diversity of voices within the space is really helpful, because someone from history or philosophy or English is talking with somebody from business or engineering, and they realize that they have some of the same concerns and aspirations. But yes, we've done unit specific. So I met with sustainability, the police, who else? Erica's athletics, all across the campus. So there's really
We'll get you over to
hundreds of,
Brandenburg.
yep.
Great.
Anything else? I should do a tally soon of
I was going to
how
ask you
many.
how many have you?
Yeah,
given?
because I do keep attendance. I tell people the attendance has nothing to do with your pay or your tenure. Absolutely nothing. I just want to be able to get a count.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wheeler. And I know you're starting to also get out a little bit in the community, and I know you've been extremely well received. And I'm sure that's the same here on campus. Enrollment, when I hear these things, I take them from historical perspective, and to see the trajectory that it's always increased over and over again. Well, it seems to be leveling a little bit now in retention, but it came from nowhere. It came from the low percentage, 30–40%. We were in that group when I first became involved, and it's amazing to see the turnaround. And it has to do with some selectivity, but I think it has to do with a lot of the hard work by the faculty and administration in concentrating on keeping the students here, keeping them happy, and keeping them right through to graduation. It's almost amazing, to me, to see that those things were aspirational when I first became involved, and it seemed like a really long reach and a high reach. But now it's trying to maintain it. I know you say you want to improve upon it, but when you're in the single digit percentage from your peers, it's really hard to improve. Things don't go right through the sky,
Right.
But that's still remains aspirational, and it's to be commended. But it's hard work, and I guess it's still continuing, even though we don't have really the absolute leader that we need, that we're searching now. But I know Dave Eaton, those are big shoes to fill. And, but he had a good model that needs to be maintained. So great to hear. Now, the university designation is also something. Now, is that going to be rolled out in to the public as well? Is there a specific time or date that comes to be?
So interesting that you would make that question. So we sent a notice to the community about a week ago, I think, that when the designation comes, it will come from NYSED and it will start to hit the paperwork phase, the corrections and edits on websites that NYSED controls immediately. But we will wait until July 1 to do a major kind of start our own rollout. And then we have a date that coincides with one of our anniversary dates, our charter date or.
Yeah, well, January 1st is the SUNY charter date.
Right. So all of those align. So I would look for the big splash announcement then, but because let's just suggest that a little birdie may have spoken to me in a dream, a vision, an email, or a text in the past 24 hours to indicate that if you were to search our website, you might find something changed on that. And not our website, but our NYSED documents already.
Yeah, I mean, it should have some influence in marketing as a university, as well as some of the, I guess, just a public perception. It's where we are. Nothing really changes other than nomenclature. Yep. But I think there is a $50 fee though, or so I think for registration.
Yeah, there's probably that.
It's in the budget, I think.
Did you notice the collection box over there as we go out?
Well deserved, but that's something that just, I know, on the move. Great.
I'm very confident that you'll be pleased with the announcement on January 1.
Great. So let's see. There's not much. I mean, I didn't give a report other than, just my couple of comments here, but I know we're on the flip side is that there's nothing controversial that I see here. Only good things in our local media about the college/university, which is really a good thing. And the campus, when these alums come back, it's hard to believe and imagine what it looked like 40 years ago, just the configuration, not only the new buildings, the ones that's been rebuilt, but it was such a hodgepodge that it could ever be cohesive and designed the way it is for these alums. I know they're flabbergasted to see it because it was a plan that they had, didn't seem possible looking out the window. And so things look good and apparently are doing very, very well. And you're commended for getting off to a good start.
Thank you. And I didn't mention one thing, I think it was in my notes somewhere, but the dates, April 19th through the 21st, 2023, that's inauguration days, with the 20th being the investiture day.
Yes, and I put it in my calendar again, Shelley, so don't worry. See, what honorary means I don't have to do any poll, just have to, be like a potted plant, right? So.
So the 20th?
Let myself are giving me the honorary chairs, and so it'll be our pleasure. It looks like a
20th.
celebration. And so it's going to be one heck of a year, going to be university
Have it written down?
inauguration, et cetera, et cetera. So it looks like some good times as well here on campus. And it should go into meetings, certainly, Ron Law, well-deserved alumni award. He's just, he bleeds orange and blue. And he's been such an asset right along through his career. So I'm glad that the alums recognized him because he certainly represented the institution and the students and the alums in every way. And we have some of the product of his hard work. So now let's see. Now we usually go to hear about the budget, which I'm sure is doing great, right? So Vice President Halstead, how are we doing?
Well, so we don't have anything for student association update first, because
No.
that's. We do.
We do?
Brianna's prepared to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll end on budget, huh?
Okay, and we'll end on the high note.
So,
What's going on? Yeah, I don't see any placards or protests, but.
no, we're doing good on the student side. Again, I want to apologize for my absence in the last meeting. But I do have some really good reports from the Student Association. First, we want to commend President Wheeler on the way that he has, shifted the president cabinet's meetings. One way that he does is that both myself as Student Association President and the RHSA President as well, Abby, we sit with right next to him during the meetings. And that really shows that like we are a part of the meetings and the students are really important, that we're all co-leaders. One thing that I think from my executive board appreciate the most is that President Wheeler has instilled in us that we have to be solution-based. And that has been a big thing because we can all go somewhere and just give as much complaints as we want, but if there's no solution, will things really get done? Like we can complain and complain and complain until, we're blue in the face, but we need to make sure that we have a solution. So we definitely are grateful for that. We use that in our own executive meetings. We use that in our own ways when we go into the classrooms that, yes, we will have, issues that come up, but we also should be thinking of solutions. I can say that my Senate is doing a tremendous job. They are the legislation of the Student Association. They have 3 initiatives that they're doing. They are doing accessibility. So in our last meeting, a meeting that we had a couple of minutes ago, we talked to Vice President Halstead about, the accessibility buttons that we have on campus, along with the accessibility of menstrual products. On top of, we are working on revamping the diversity, equity, inclusion website with Vice President Tahena. And we are working very hard, very diligent, and we are just so happy to be here. And yeah, that's my update.
Thank you. It's all one institution with a lot of different moving parts.
Yes.
And we synchronized, it's great. So thank you very much.
You've been accepted to Harvard yet for your doctoral, Brianna?
Not yet.
We got big expectations.
Pressure, no pressure.
Now we go to Michelle.
All right, ladies online, are you seeing my presentation? Okay, awesome. All right, so normally in November, it's been our past practice that I didn't really give an expenditure update because it is difficult at this time of the year to really project where we're going to be at the end of the year. But my new boss gave me a new challenge and asked that I present the budget information that we have to this point as compared to last year at this point. So what you're going to see is a little bit different, and I'm going to back up just a little bit because Brianna has not seen this yet to give some context to the budget. So what you're going to be seeing is the state operating budget. It's one of many funds that we have on campus, but it is the largest fund that we have on campus. It's supported by tuition dollars that we raise here on campus and by state direct taxpayer support. Through this budget, we pay things like faculty salaries, by and large. That's a major portion of this budget, along with administrative salaries and what we call lovingly OTPS, which is other than personal things. So it's stuff like utilities, down to the basic paper contracts, copiers and whatnot. So that's what you're going to see here represented. So in the last meeting, on the left side of the screen, you see what I presented was, here's our budget. Here's what we predicted we were going to get in tuition and fees for fall, tuition and fees for spring. Here's what SUNY and the state had proposed and promised to the campus in the form of direct taxpayer support. And then on the expenditure side, here's what we thought we were going to need to spend in personal service, temporary service, utilities, and supplies, travel, contracts, and other things. At this point, we know that our fall tuition came in higher than we targeted, which is a great thing. Last year, it wasn't so good. And I'm going to move you, lovely ladies, because you are in the middle of my presentation. So hopefully I don't cut you out. Okay, there you go. So this year we are above our target for tuition, but at this point last year, we were slightly below that target for tuition. Of course, we don't have a spring update yet because registration's happening now. We tend to bill for spring in the month of December, and students continuously register until the first day of classes. So we'll have probably at the next meeting, I'll have a preliminary spring number for you. The state gives us their contribution in dribs and drabs. So this year, they've already sent 16% of our direct taxpayer support to the campus. Last year, at this point, they sent 20. It's just when certain timing with when they can release the bills. All right, so on the revenue side, we're looking better than we were last year. Now, the expenditure side is where it proves a little challenging this time of year. We are at, I did this report as of October 31st on purpose because that's the perfect 1/3 of the way, 33% through the year. So it's a good marker to have. This year, we are at 30% for our personal service. So that means we're saving on personnel costs. Some of that's good, some of that's bad. We're just having a little challenge getting some of our vacancies filled, but we do hold positions vacant on purpose to achieve savings. It's just they're staying vacant a little longer than we would hope in many cases, which is causing a little bit of a strain on the existing staff members and faculty. Last year at this time, you'll see that we had 32% spent at this juncture and that the actual dollar figure was larger than it is now. Julie Walsh and I, the AVP for budget, and I scratched our heads and said, what is this about? What's going on here? So we had to dig back and we realized that last August, there was a retroactive payment for our professional union that represents the faculty and professional staff members. Their raises had been held up during the pandemic and then they pushed them through last August. So it created a little bit of a false bump in that number at this point last year. In temporary service, we're holding pretty much true to where we were last year, the 19 to 21%. Since we have more vacancies here, we tend to add a little bit more in the temporary service to keep the trains running. So temporary faculty, temporary staff members. And then here's where it gets really wild. In the utilities, last year we had paid 3%. It's not because utilities cost a lot less last year. It's just a matter of timing. It's a matter of when we receive bills, when they're put on the system, and when they're paid. So this year I happen to know that one of the big chunks is the water bill that we get from the Village of New Paltz. Last year it was not approved and paid before this juncture, and this year it has been. So that's part of that sort of false inflation you see here. And then in supplies, travel, contracts, and other, again, this time of year is challenging. There's so many people who are putting in purchase orders and spending money that the timing of those regular payments is just a little bit different. But all in all, you'll see when it comes down to the bottom line, we're at 29% of our funds, our budgeted funds expended this year and 29% last year. So with some adjustments, we're pretty much right in line. So we'll move forward with this and continue to compare to last year and see how this all works out. So it is just a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. It's more information, but it gets a little complicated. So that's the budget part. Then, as Dr. Wheeler mentioned before, we are both interested in getting a more fulsome budget and resource planning program and resource planning document together for the campus so people know what's expected of them and when, how we'll make our decisions based on data. So this is a very, very draft form of that document. And what we're trying to do is align 3 different pieces of the budget. So first we start with the state budget. So the executive budget is launched in January and the state budget has its own cycle. And then SUNY comes in on top of that. And then the campus leadership has a role in it, and then the departments have a role in it. So I was trying to figure out how to match them all up by quarter. So this is the first time anyone's seeing this, and please forgive my PowerPoint skills because they aren't the best. I'm a numbers person, not a PowerPoint person. Okay, and obviously I don't know how to move this forward. There we go. Ladies, I have to move you again, just slightly. Okay, so in January to March, the governor's budget is released, and then the one House bills, the various parts of the legislature get in and say, no, we want this, and no, we want that, and the games begin on the state level. So in January, there's not too much going on. It's just we're setting the landscape for what might be coming SUNY's way. On the campus part, during January to March, we're gathering data for next year. Departments meet with their individual leadership to start to discuss what's it going to look like next year. And then departments have to actually look at what their own cycles are. The faculty have one cycle, administrative departments will have others. Erica's department has even a third because they have their own fiscal year to deal with. So everybody needs to start thinking about what does my business look like? So for faculty, it's when is the course schedule set for the upcoming semester, because that's going to determine what they need as far as resources in the classroom. How many temporary faculty are they going to need to teach all the courses that the students need to have available to graduate? So that's what the faculty are doing. They begin to formulate that new temporary service budget in academic affairs. That's what the AA is. And then at the end of March, they're finalizing their discussion with their divisional leadership. With any luck, on April 1st, we have a state budget that tells us exactly what SUNY is going to get. And then from that, we can sort of extrapolate what New Paltz is going to get. Traditionally, it's been about 3% of the SUNY allocation that we enjoy, give or take a couple $100,000. So April 1st, the state budget's beginning, and SUNY receives their New Year budgets. On the campus part, from April 1 to May 31st, we're going to have the budget negotiation period. Basically, that's when we all get in a room and start scrapping it out as to who's going to get what. So divisional leadership will meet with myself and the AVP for budget and start talking about what the needs are. Then by June 30th, we'll have that budget set. And and it'll be put to bed on the 30th and ready to be input to the SUNY system. Before March 31st, on the departmental level, there are a couple of different things happening where we're closing out one fiscal year and starting a new. So by May 31st, people have to have their very last expenditure requests for the previous year in for purchasing to purchase and use those old year funds. And then they help the accounts payable and purchasing offices reconcile those accounts. All right, come on. Okay, it's just a 2-button push. All right, and then underneath my friends here, July to September, SUNY receives the budget and loads it into BI, which is the business intelligence system. So a lot of this is very technical and doesn't really need to, the global world doesn't need to know about this, but on the campus we will. On the part of the campus, we've just started our new fiscal year, July 1st. The budget's being finalized. We submit the budget to system administration and they populate that business intelligence system for everybody. And accounts payable and purchasing will finalize purchases for the last year, which is called the lapsing period. And then we start thinking about the next year. So we're in preliminary budget mode. So we're closing out one, opening another. Again, assisting accounts payable and purchasing and closing things out. And then the third week of September, the spring course schedule is set. So the faculty again start looking at what they're going to need for temporary services in the spring. And then October to December, not a lot's going on with SUNY until the elections are over and they start to form their advocacy plans. So last week, after the results of the New York State gubernatorial election were known, SUNY said, okay, our governor outlaid 110 points for SUNY to aspire to in the next decade or so. So we're going to surround our advocacy around those points. We're going to ask for what we need now, and we're going to look toward the SUNY of 2030, and we're going to put our budget proposal together in that manner. So that's what's going on at the higher level up in Albany. On campus, we now know what the lapsing year actuals are because all of the transfers have been done and that former year is put to bed. And then the new year initial projections, very much like what I reported at the last meeting, we'll know what our tuition for fall came in for, and we'll begin to shape what the budget is actually going to be for that year. And then on the very the smallest levels on campus, the departments are reviewing their final expenditures. They're checking their new year accounts to make sure everything was posted properly, because sometimes things happen and they're not posted properly. So we need to know that we need to fix those. And then we can look at the 3-year averages. We have a lot of data that's behind the campus firewall in mynewpaltz.edu. It's the Budget Information Center, where we have 10 years of actual expenditures cooked any way you want to have them cooked by a new Kubo function, which is a nationwide accounting category spending. We have them by division on campus. We have them by department. So we can get into the nitty gritty and start to look at the details and say, well, how come we spent so much last year when we didn't the 2 previous years, or vice versa? How much do we need? Is this department leaving a lot of money on the table every year? So maybe they're overfunded, but we need more funding over here, and we can shift those dollars to align with our campus priorities. So that's basically the shell of what we're going to try to continually flesh out for the campus, so that everyone from a department manager up to the cabinet table can really understand the budget, their role in it, and what they should be doing at any point during the year.
Thank you so much. I think this is like the best budget presentation ever.
Well, thank our new president, because he gave me the challenge. Every time I walk out of his office, it's like I have work to do. I don't understand.
Trouble
It's good, yeah, it keeps you, don't get.
Keeps me on my toes, yeah. So any questions?
No, I'm just kind of amazed that you're really drilling in and focusing, but it's necessary, and I guess you promulgate it throughout the entire campus, so everybody kind of knows and focuses, because, the budget sometimes gets put off to the side until it's ding, 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 where's your budget, where's your budget? I've been involved a couple times over my career, those things, and it's not something you want to work on. Generally, you have your job, not your budget, but you're the one who has to do the budget. So this gives the focus, gives the timing, and probably be really helpful. Plus, it makes things better. So, so things won't slip through the cracks, and won't be an emergency as much as it probably happens all the time, that they need money or something's not getting paid. And so now they kind of know they can see it coming over the horizon. So it's not an emergency.
Right. And we have a lot of fresh eyes on campus besides our esteemed president. We've had some turnover in some key roles on campus. So it will be nice to have a document that people can just pick up, under President Christian's leadership. It's been a decade where this was second nature to him. He understood these things, but having someone new like Dr. Wheeler come in and say, well, what happens here and what happens there and why isn't it documented? It's like, well, because it's documented it here. We need to get these things down on paper so that we can leave a legacy when we're when it's our time to hit that revolving door. And so that the institution can carry on.
So thank you. Anybody have any questions? So when moving on, it's not Judy Bishop.
What?
It's like 40 years. This is hard.
4,000.
But you're not going to leave because you're going to be the alumni representative. So it's going to be, you said it's weeks or days?
6 weeks, exactly.
6 weeks.
December 22nd is my last physical day. December 31st is my last payroll date.
So you're going to be retired.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I know there's going to be an event to celebrate on December 6th at the Student Union Building, 3 to 5 p.m. Sounds like a good time to have a party.
It's going to not only be a good time for a party, but December 6th at approximately 6 p.m., I think, in the multipurpose room is the Multicultural Festival, which
Oh
is
my
hosted
gosh.
by the International Student Union. So that's going to be kind of, we'll all move from my party. to
Continue your party is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, no, I started undergraduate admissions in 1988, and I took an extremely long maternity leave between, I think, 93 and 97, and came back again for David Eaton, and came back again in the international program. Now I work in undergraduate admissions again, so it's just been a hazarai.
Well, thank you very much for all you've done for so many people. I think you had a lot. I know you had a lot of fun, and you're going to
Thank
continue to
you.
be here.
And we're going to
You're an
travel like
alum,
crazy.
and that's who you are, and that's great. And you're
I also bleed orange and blue. I love that
Okay.
expression.
good for you, and it's been good for us.
Thank you.
So thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate being part of this group as well.
Oh, and you're very well appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks. A couple other things. We talked about money. It's going to be the end of the year, and we're all going to be bombarded by these pleas for donations. So, I know my late wife, myself, take seriously New Paltz as an object of our philanthropy. And there's a couple things that are always favored, which would be the Emergency Crisis Fund and also the finish line, because people are right at the cusp and can't get out. They have nowhere else to go. And just in general. So I'd ask you all if you could think and your order of priority for your philanthropy to put some of you where you work and others where you're on the council, put that on the top of your list. And I would encourage that. And I thank you in advance for your generosity. Other than that, that's about it. We're going to have meetings next year, and Shelley will pick a date, and Lisa will send it out
And so
to us.
calendars.
I'll do to be back. And with that, I just wish you all, happy holiday season, because I don't know if I'll see anybody until next year. I know I'll see some of you, certainly. I know we have a well-represented Kingston cadre here that I'll see one either in the neighborhood or someplace, but that's all good. And hope you, I don't know if we need a motion to adjourn, but if anybody has any new business or any old business they want to bring up, let me know. So I'm going to say happy holidays.
We can't adjourn. We don't have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many